All right, we've got an update. Pro Bowl festivities happening in Orlando. Jennifer Lee Chan does a great job covering the 49ers, is down there in Orlando. You could go check out her channel. Talk to Nick Bosa and also talk to Fred Warner. And two short interviews, but a nice little nugget from Nick Bosa's interview. He says that new 49ers defensive coordinator Robert Saleh is, quote unquote, very adamant about re-signing Dre Greenlaw. And I think that Saleh's word here has more weight than a defensive coordinator's normally would, because he just went through an interview process where the 49ers were aggressively pursuing him to return. He was interviewing for other jobs, including head coaching jobs, while this process was happening. The 49ers ended up landing Saleh, who was their big fish, but I would go out on a limb and say that Saleh talked about Dre Greenlaw and his desire to have the 49ers running back, the 49ers linebacker back for the 2025 season. I mean, you look at Brandon Staley last year. He had a lot of say in the 49ers free agency process, and Brandon Staley was a one-time coach for San Francisco. He's probably going to be a defensive coordinator somewhere else. I think that he is the candidate for the Saints defensive coordinator job under Kellen Moore. But if Staley had a lot of say last year, and you saw Leonard Floyd come in, who had worked with Brandon Staley, you saw Isaac Yiadom come in, who had worked under Brandon Staley at different stops. That was back, obviously, in Denver with Isaac Yiadom. There was only 1 year of overlap there. If Staley had a lot of influence, then I think that Robert Saleh is going to carry at least that amount of influence, but probably even more, given the fact that the 49ers had to lure him to be the defensive coordinator. This was the big fish that Kyle Shanahan was looking to land to the coaching staff, and he has worked with Dre Greenlaw in the past. Now, the Senior Bowl happened today. I can still remember 2019 season. So this was January 20th, 2020, 49ers against the Green Bay Packers, NFC Championship game. San Francisco just squashes Green Bay. I head into the locker room. One of the first people that I saw in that locker room was Robert Saleh wearing his From Mobile to Miami t-shirt. That's what the 49ers coaching staff was wearing following that NFC Championship. They finished 4-12 in 2018, which meant that they, as a coaching staff, were selected to coach one of the teams at the Senior Bowl. So they were in Mobile, Alabama in January of 2019. A calendar year later, in January of 2020, the 49ers were on their way to Miami for the Super Bowl. And the reason that sticks out in my head is that there are two players and two stars in particular that the 49ers picked in large part because of positive impressions that they gained while coaching the Senior Bowl in Mobile. And one of them was obviously Deebo Samuel, and the other one was Dre Greenlaw. So Robert Saleh got to coach Dre Greenlaw when he was just coming out of Arkansas at that Senior Bowl in January of 2019. So Dre Greenlaw was responsible for a tremendous amount of success and career success for Robert Saleh, a promotion to become the head coach of the New York Jets. If you think about Greenlaw's impact his rookie season on Robert, there was the stop right at the goal line against Seattle in week 18. I guess it was week 17 back then because they weren't playing the 17-game schedule. But there was the stop right at the goal line by an inch, maybe even less than that. We'll call it a centimeter against Jacob Hollister that secured the number 1 seed. One of the most dramatic moments in 49ers franchise history was delivered by the rookie whom Robert Saleh had coached just about, 11, 12 months prior to that at the Senior Bowl. I mean, just really, really cool symmetry there. And it, based on that common experience, based on what Dre Greenlaw did to elevate the profile of the 49ers defense in 2019. And obviously in 2020, he also had a nice season for San Francisco before Robert Saleh left. But based on all that, you can see why Robert Saleh would be adamant about Dre Greenlaw coming back to the 49ers in 2025. When Saleh left to the New York Jets, he ensured that his linebacker room would also be a position of strength. And then New York delivered several top 5 defensive units under Robert Saleh. The way that this defense runs, linebacker is eminently important. We could even talk about the coaching connections at linebacker. Saleh brings in the Seattle-style cover 3. In 2013, when Robert Saleh is on that Seahawks staff, it's the team that wins the Super Bowl for Seattle. Bobby Wagner is a linebacker on that football team. KJ Wright is a linebacker for those Seahawks. And now KJ Wright is an assistant under Robert Saleh with the 49ers. One of the first things that Saleh did when he was rehired by the 49ers about a week ago is FaceTime KJ Wright, who happened to be the one 49ers staffer picked to work at the Senior Bowl this year. He worked with the edge rushers of the national team, a group that included Mike Green, who we've talked about a lot over the course of this week. But anyway, KJ Wright, rising coaching star. I think his experience as a linebacker in this system has a lot to do with his spot coaching the 49ers. He was working under Johnny Holland primarily last year as a quality control coach, but I do think that he's on the fast track to rise up through the ranks of this staff. It was a linebacker who actually replaced Robert Saleh as the 49ers defensive coordinator when Saleh left to the Jets in 2021 in DeMeco Ryans. 49ers would be extraordinarily lucky if KJ Wright was on a similar track. When we talk about the importance of that linebacker position just through the Seattle years, then to the 49ers years, they used one of their first picks of this entire regime on a linebacker, Reuben Foster, in 2017. And although that didn't work out due to off-field issues with Reuben Foster, they used a third-round pick that definitely did work out the very next season on Fred Warner. So Warner then was joined, and it's kind of like a Batman and Robin situation, in 2019 by Dre Greenlaw. And I know that the 49ers picked up Nick Bosa and Dee Ford for that 2019 season, and the edge rush went to new heights because of it. But I think it's just as important to realize that the fact they had 2 stack linebackers who would become the best stack linebacker duo in football when healthy in Warner and Dre Greenlaw, I think that had a whole heck of a lot to do with the turbocharging of the 49ers defense. So now we sit here with Nick Bosa saying that Robert Saleh is adamant about bringing Greenlaw back, and we definitely see why. If you're running a wide 9, there's going to be bigger gaps in between all of the defensive linemen. So the linebackers are going to have to be on point, both through their film study and through their athleticism. And then the physicality has to be there. You have to have somebody who's fast enough to cover in this day and age. That's just a given. But also physical enough to really be able to bring the thump in those large gaps that the wide 9 is going to leave. So the 49ers fell precipitously as a run defense this past season, with Dre Greenlaw playing only 34 snaps all year. And those two facts are very, very correlated. They need to be good at that linebacker position. The other day, we heard from Jeremy Fowler that Jamien Sherwood, who played for Robert Saleh with the New York Jets, was a candidate to sign with the 49ers, that supposedly San Francisco is going to go after Jamien Sherwood once free agency opens. And it makes total sense because I think that Saleh had a great experience with his linebackers while he was coaching the New York Jets. CJ Mosley was also on that team, one of the highest paid linebackers in the game. And, you know, when we talk about competing for somebody who's going to be a free agent from those Jets teams, 49ers might have to compete with the Atlanta Falcons, where Jeff Ulbrich, the defensive coordinator under Robert Saleh with the Jets, is now the DC. So the Falcons will be interested in Jamien Sherwood. I would not be surprised that the 49ers will be interested in him as well. And how about a linebacker room of Warner, Greenlaw, and Sherwood? You look at this past season, 49ers entered in a tough position because it was Warner and Devondre Campbell who ended up quitting on the football team. Devondre Campbell happened to be the 49ers' second choice to fill in for Greenlaw at that linebacker position, because Eric Kendricks defected from his verbal agreement and ended up signing with the Dallas Cowboys. So the 49ers were already on sketchy ground entering the season at linebacker. And that sketchy ground, it was like thin ice, and that thin ice ended up collapsing underneath them during the entire game against the Rams. But in the second half, that's when they decided to kick Devondre Campbell off the field. And, the rest was history. We covered that very, very extensively. So they need to make sure that linebacker ends up in a better spot than it was in the 2024 season. I'm going to open up the 49ers depth chart right now, because as we talk about a Warner, Greenlaw, and Jamie Sherwood linebacker room, we should look at what the 49ers have depth-wise visually. And I'm going to zoom in on linebacker right here. This is who's under contract for 2025. Warner, Winters, and Tatum Bethune. And Winters made strides last year, undoubtedly. I still remember the pass breakup he had against DK Metcalf in that second game against the Seattle Seahawks, first Seattle drive. That was impressive. That's good. Tatum Bethune, we'll have to see what the 49ers have with him. He saw a little bit of action, primarily on special teams last year. He was the rookie 7th-round pick out of Florida State. So those are two guys that are in the project pipeline, the developmental pipeline for the 49ers. But they have nobody currently on the roster, even on my 90-man projection, behind those three. So there's definitely room to bring in Dre Greenlaw on at least a 1-year extension. There's definitely room on the roster to bring in Jamie Sherwood. And if they do that, then all of a sudden, Winters and Bethune are developmental depth that is not starting for you. It's Warner, Greenlaw, and Sherwood. And I'll spell his name right here. There, Jamie Sherwood. So that's, I mean, to me, the linebacker is so important to this football team. The fact that the 49ers are interested in it right off the bat of this offseason before free agency even hits, it's a no-brainer because it connects the defensive line to the secondary. Something that you absolutely have to have in place if you want better defensive results than the 49ers have seen over the past couple of years, especially last year when Dre Greenlaw missed almost all of the season. Now, again, this is going to come down to, in all likelihood, unless Dre Greenlaw wants to sign right now with the 49ers, unless he takes a contract that San Francisco is offering him right now before he can negotiate with the outside NFL world, unless that happens, there might be some competition for the 49ers. And competition might dictate that this goes outside their comfortable price range, in which case, well, there might be a really hard decision to make inside 49ers HQ. And that's why hearing from Nick Bosa at the Pro Bowl is significant, because if Robert Saleh is indeed very adamant about Greenlaw's return, that can be the tipping point toward pushing the 49ers to pony up and pay a little bit extra to make sure that they win a bidding war for Dre Greenlaw, because this is a linebacker who fits their system and would fit any system based on his skill set, but fits it so extremely perfectly. Remember that Greenlaw, when they put the GPS tracker under his pads in Arkansas, he was the fastest player on that defense. He ran over 20 miles an hour playing linebacker for the Arkansas defense. We've seen his pass coverage abilities. We saw the interception against Seattle in week 10 of the 2019 season. We saw the goal line stop against Jacob Hollister up in the Pacific Northwest in week 17. We've seen big hits, ferocious run defense, tone-setting attitude on the field, pick six against Detroit week 1 of the 2021 season. We've seen all of this from Dre Greenlaw. We've seen excellent play from the 49ers linebacker unit, and we've seen quite poor play without him. So the delta is very important, but the 49ers also, and the rest of the league, must balance the fact that he came back explosive as hell from the Achilles injury. That was great, but he only delivered 34 snaps. So where's the durability from Dre Greenlaw? Maybe it's there. Maybe it will be there in 2025. But before any player signs a longer contract, a more lucrative contract of any sort, a team is going to check the two boxes, right? They're going to check physical explosiveness and they're going to check physical durability before you go to anything else. And the durability checkbox is still, I think, unfilled for Dre Greenlaw. So the 49ers might have to work something out that is incentive-based, and anything that they do potentially work out might have to be judged against what the rest of the market says about Dre Greenlaw. It was interesting to me because Jennifer Lee Chan asked Nick Bosa about other players. I think she specifically asked about DJ Jones, who's scheduled to be a free agent after spending a few seasons with the Denver Broncos. And Nick Bosa said, it's not my job, but he'd love to see a reunion with DJ Jones. And then he proceeded to mention Javon Kinlaw, saying that he would love to have Kinlaw back with the 49ers, even though he was not specifically asked about Kinlaw. And when I look at the roster and I see all these guys under contract at the defensive line room, unlike the other position groups for the 49ers defense, I wonder, okay, where would these additions fit? And I look at defensive tackle specifically. Imagine Javon Kinlaw or DJ Jones on this team alongside Malik Collins. All of a sudden, defensive tackle is a whole lot better than it was last season. Hell, even Solomon Thomas, who played under Robert Saleh with the Jets, just like Javon Kinlaw, would raise the floor of the room. It's not just about raising the ceiling of the room. It's about raising the floor of the room. And that's why the 49ers should be interested in some of these guys who are familiar faces from the New York Jets, Kinlaw and Solomon Thomas. And then DJ Jones is a familiar face who's currently under contract with the Broncos, but is slated to be a free agent when March comes around. So this is all intriguing stuff, and it's really corroborating what we suspected. We thought that Robert Saleh would be a big Dre Greenlaw fan because of the shared history. And yes, he is a big Dre Greenlaw fan. And you know who's a fan of Robert Saleh? Kyle Shanahan. Nick Bosa said that Kyle Shanahan is probably resting easy that Robert Saleh has inked to be the 49ers defensive coordinator. Bosa said that when he was leaving the building at the end of the regular season, Kyle Shanahan told him that he was going to aggressively pursue Robert Saleh. We figured as much, and we knew that the first reported interview was Robert Saleh, but then we also knew that it was around about 11 days or so. It was a long time in between. It was 15 days. It was 2 weeks in between Robert Saleh's reported interview with the 49ers and him actually signing the contract. Seemed to be a stressful 2 weeks for Kyle Shanahan and company. But they ended up getting the big fish. They ended up landing Robert Saleh. And Bosa, one of his comments was that he didn't realize how good the 49ers had it with Robert Saleh until he left. And they had it really good with DeMeco Ryans as well, but it did take DeMeco like half a season to get going. But especially the past 2 seasons with Steve Wilks and Nick Sorensen, those were 2 missed defensive coordinator hires for the 49ers. It just wasn't where they needed it to be. And now they've got the guy that crafted this system from the very get-go in 2017, who showed tremendous adaptability in 2020. Kyle Shanahan, even if he wasn't physically spending time in defensive meeting rooms, that it was a point of stress for him over the course of the past 2 seasons. So he fired Wilks and didn't technically fire Sorensen. He said, you could stay on the staff, but you're not going to be the DC. Sorensen then decided to leave, and now he's the special teams coordinator of the Cowboys. And now the 49ers are bringing in the truly experienced professionals, somebody like Robert Saleh, who knows this system, who has a documented track record of success, who has the energy that San Francisco has seemingly missed on the sidelines from its defensive coordinators over the past 2 seasons. Nick Bosa said that he FaceTimed Robert Saleh very, very soon after the hiring, and he said the fire that you see on the sideline is what he was like on FaceTime. And Fred Warner said that he FaceTimed Saleh as well. So it's obvious that this guy is very popular in the 49ers building. He was very sought after. He's going to have some clout, and he might use that clout to bring back Dre Greenlaw. He's very adamant about the Dre Greenlaw return, according to Nick Bosa, at the Pro Bowl. We're going to open this up to a 49ers Q&A. It is a Saturday night. It's the first day of February. We're still going strong. Big crowd in the room. You guys can ask me whatever you want, maybe particularly about the 49ers defense. And I do have to let you know that this show is brought to you by Public Rec. I still am wearing the Public Rec pants that we talk about on these ad reads. They're formal and they're comfortable at the same time. They could be sweatpants or they could be worn to a nicer dinner. You could do either one. That is the glory of the Public Rec Game Changer pants. Make your New Year's resolution a comfortable one. No more pants that pinch, tug, or annoy. For a limited time, you can get 20% off at Public Rec by using the code Lombardi at checkout. Just head to publicrec.com. Use Lombardi, and you're all set. Oh, and when they ask you how you found them, be sure to mention our show. It really helps us out. Find your perfect fit and never compromise on comfort. Again, Public Rec, where comfort rules. Once again, Lombardi at checkout is the code for 20% off. Time for the Q&A. Has Saleh become the highest paid defensive coordinator in the league? I don't know his exact contract, that hasn't been made public, but he is one of the highest paid defensive coordinators in the league, because that's one of the ways that the 49ers were able to lure him to San Francisco. What's the hoodie? Somebody's asking about the hoodie. The hoodie is, that says Deli Board. And they did it in saloon font. Deli Board is at 7th and Folsom. You guys know that I'm a man of the people. We go to the sandwich shops. We go to the taquerias. Deli Board might be the best sandwich in the world. It is at 7th and Folsom in Soma. They've got a sandwich called the 49er. Tell Adam that I sent you, or tell whoever's working there that I sent you. Go order the 49er from Deli Board. How do I feel with the new special teams coach? Brant Boyer has delivered good results with the Jets. We'll see how he does with the 49ers. I think that it's even more imperative than just relying on Brant Boyer that the 49ers care from a top-down level about special teams. I would love to see Kyle Shanahan call a fake punt. I would love to see him authorize some creativity, some trickery on a return every few months. This doesn't have to be a common thing, but I think culturally the 49ers need to broadcast more of a focus on special teams, and that's going to help Brant Boyer do a better job with San Francisco. All right, bring in your questions. We're talking about Robert Saleh, who is adamant about Dre Greenlaw coming back to the 49ers. If we could keep it on theme, that would be beneficial. I'll also play some of the Senior Bowl defensive line talk, the edge rusher talk. We obviously talked about that in Paris. Some of you may have already seen the video, but I might put it on again just because I have a little bit of a cold. Sometimes I need a little bit of a break from talking when it's been 22 minutes straight. But if you have any good questions before we get to that point, I would love to answer them. Who are the best candidates to replace Charvarius Ward? DJ Reed and Paulson Adebo. Both scheduled to be free agents. Paulson Adebo, a Stanford product, played for the Saints. And, you know, when I look at DJ Reed, well, I think of familiar faces, and Dre Greenlaw is a familiar face, a 5th-round pick for the 49ers. Robert Saleh obviously wants back on the football team. Why wouldn't he want DJ Reed back? The 49ers were also disappointed when they let him get away in 2020 with that injury designation maneuver that Seattle pounced on. That was a major point of regret for this 49ers regime. Well, DJ Reed ended up playing for Robert Saleh with the New York Jets, and he's a good inside-out corner. Brandon Staley did a really good job with the 49ers corners this year. We saw more adaptability than ever from that unit, and they had Deommodore Lenoir playing inside and outside. And I think that's something the 49ers, even if Staley doesn't stay on the staff, they're going to try to keep. I mean, it's a fundamental flexibility that really helps your defense. And if they do keep that with this defense moving forward, then having somebody like DJ Reed and Deommodore Lenoir on the defense, I call Demo version 2.0 of DJ Reed. I mean, it's a 5th-round draft pick who has inside-out versatility. Having that adaptability, I think, would really help Robert Saleh take this defense to creativity 2.0. And 2.0 relative to where he was at before. He made this defense really good before, but you're constantly trying to evolve in this league. And if Charvarius Ward doesn't come back, why not DJ Reed, somebody that's inside-out adaptable, just like their top corner under contract right now in Demo Lenoir. We got people asking if DJ Jones is too expensive. I don't know if he's too expensive. We don't know what the price point is going to be on any of these guys. We don't know Dre Greenlaw yet. We know Saleh wants Greenlaw back, but if Greenlaw doesn't, say the 49ers offer Greenlaw a contract right now, and he's like, I think I can make a little bit more. It's his right to not sign it and wait till he's an unrestricted free agent to see how much he's worth on the market. So I don't know exactly how much Greenlaw's worth. I don't know exactly how much DJ Jones is worth. We don't even know what the salary cap is going to be set at yet, because the salary cap is based on NFL revenues during a given season, and the season's not even over yet. The Super Bowl's in a week. So the NFL is going to have to set its salary cap after it has its exact revenues. Then teams are going to be able to bid for these free agents once free agency actually starts, and then we'll know who's too expensive and who's not too expensive on these football teams. So it's just too early to answer questions like this. Invader 49ers says 1 year, $6 million for Greenlaw. I think we're spitballing at this point. It's a tough situation because he's checked the box of explosiveness, but he has not yet checked the box of durability. So where is it going to land? That's what we're waiting for. People arguing about Nick Zakelj. This is not in response to me. I'm guessing that this is in response to something in the chat section. Zakelj played some good football for the 49ers this year. Reserve linemen got in there late, interior line. I don't think the run blocking was where the 49ers needed to be yet, but his pass blocking was actually really good. I think the question with Nick Zakelj, whether or not he is able to break into an actual starting spot along the offensive line will depend on the improvement of his run blocking. As of now, they like him as a rotational backup offensive lineman, and you definitely need those guys on the football team. I don't know about this, Mr. Bacon and Eggs. He wants Greenlaw 3 years, $75 million with a team option for the third year. It's a lot of money. He's not going to get paid that much. That'd be the very top of the linebacker market for Dre Greenlaw. He would shatter it. He would shatter it the way that Justin Jefferson shattered the receiver market. So the deal's not going to be this big. I'm pretty sure you're being facetious. But we'll see exactly where it lands because it definitely needs to be more than somewhere around the veteran minimum. Dre Greenlaw is a really good, impactful player for the 49ers. The trick is that he's coming off of not playing a whole lot of football since the 2023 season. How was Paris? It was only 3 days long. Yeah, you're right. It was very short, but it was fun. We did a long live walking around Montmartre. I obviously did the video from the top of Mount Mart where we talked about the 49ers defense. I think that we could play that in conjunction with this. I'll play that to finish this show. We'll give you one more little look back at Paris before we move on. Saturday night, Margot wants to hang out. Well, we're going to go chill right now, and I need to shut down the studio here in a little bit. But we're a little tired after the trip because it was such a quick there and back, but we ate really, really damn well. The Paris sandwich tour was something else. I really enjoyed that. It was, and you'll see it in the video that I play a little bit later. We had the steak frites where they asked us if it was going to be medium or medium rare. We said medium rare. Get yourself a sandwich where they ask you how you want the meat cooked. That means the meat is really fresh. That was awesome. So we ate our way through the whole city, drank a little bit of wine. My wife liked the wine more than I do. I'm more of a beer drinker. I had some good French beer. That was cool. And it was a little cold. I've been to Paris 4 times now, and every single time it's changed a little bit. This time, though, because we did focus so much on staying inside and eating, probably was my favorite. My first time in 2009 and my last time in 2025, or my most recent time here in 2025, those are my 2 favorites. I still like Prague better than Paris, but I'm a homer for Prague, so we'll just keep it at that. And there's a lot more fun travel coming up for the rest of this offseason. Xavier said, this is so true. Get your sleep. Nothing is better than a good night's sleep. Yeah, I'm like a little sick from all this cross-ocean travel. And now we're going across another ocean in like less than 2 weeks at this point. So I got to make sure that I get healthy. We're going to a much warmer destination this time. They speak French, so you guys can guess where this next one is going to be. We seem to be on a French-speaking kick right now, but we'll make 49ers content from wherever we go. I just do need to get some sleep before that happens. For those of you just joining, the 49ers will be trying to bring back Dre Greenlaw. Robert Saleh, according to Nick Bosa at the Pro Bowl, is very adamant about Dre Greenlaw returning, and I see why, because Greenlaw and Robert Saleh were quite the partnership dating back to that Senior Bowl. January of 2019 in Mobile, Alabama. Just so happens the Senior Bowl was played today. And Nick Bosa seems very in favor of a Javon Kinlaw return as well. You mentioned Kinlaw without even being asked about him. I've written so much about this in my 49ers State of the 49ers defense piece that San Francisco needs to improve the interior of its defensive line. Javon Kinlaw, DJ Jones, those are players who would definitely do that. And obviously Dre Greenlaw would improve a linebacker room where they're going to have to sign somebody regardless. So I would talk about Jamie and Sherwood. I would think a linebacker room of Warner, Greenlaw, and Jamie and Sherwood would look damn good on the 49ers. Damn good on the 49ers. I mean, that's a position that is extremely important that last year San Francisco was not able to bring up to par. They suffered because of it throughout the season, and then they took a real gut punch when Devondre Campbell quit on the football team. That's at the epicenter of a defense that the 49ers are trying to fix. Those of you asking about Paris, I'll take you back there right now. We're going to talk a little bit more about Nick Bosa and this 49ers defense. Saleh is back, and the 49ers want to return to 2019 level defensive line dominance to help out this guy. Find a bookend for this guy, Nick Bosa. State of the 49ers defensive line is up, and we're wrapping up our 49ers Paris tour, which means elite sandwiches to pair with talk of the 49ers defense returning to elite levels. You know, the Senior Bowl's happening right now. Just so happens that KJ Wright, the 49ers assistant linebackers coach, was a quality control coach under Johnny Holland this past season. Just so happens that he is coaching edge rushers for the national team. And one of his players was the sack leader in college football, Mike Green out of Marshall, and he is turning heads at the Senior Bowl this week. And KJ Wright is going to have a very, very detailed scouting report of Mike Green to bring back to the 49ers.
The guy led college football in sacks. I mean, what else do you need to know? The guy just finds a way with what his body gives him.
Yep.
And so he's really fun to work with. The guy's been in the film room. We watch film before. We want to watch it after practice. He asked me earlier today, what can I get better at? Like, the guy's just a student of the game. He's a bona fide baller. So I love working with him. He's an awesome kid, and he'll really work up the draft charts.
17 sacks, led the nation last year from Mike Green. And he's 248 pounds, so this is the lighter, more athletic edge rushing type that has paired well with Nick Bosa in the past. Remember D Ford in 2019? He was 245, maybe 250 pounds, out of Auburn, roared off the edge. The speed rush for the 49ers is, I think, what binded that line together. I know that they have Leonard Floyd now, and Floyd had a fine season. If you take a look at the metrics for the 49ers defensive line, Floyd had 8.5 sacks and a decent pressure rate for San Francisco, but he's more of a cleanup sack guy in that he's not going to win one-on-one as often. He's an effort player. 49ers had a few players with good years, especially good finishes along the defensive line. Aside from Leonard Floyd, obviously Yetur Gross-Matos, he's going to be the Charles Omenihu, Arden Key. He's under contract for 2 years. And Malik Collins on the inside, actually ranked number 7 out of all defensive tackles in pass rush win rate. But the depth did not perform well for the 49ers this past year. And it hadn't performed well now for a couple years. I mean, you go back and you look at the 2019 defensive line, and they were so good 1 through 7, 1 through 8. Now, you know, at the peak of performance in 2024, the 49ers were good 1 through 3 or 1 through 4. And the good news is that those top 4 guys, they're all under contract for the 2025 season. They signed a bunch of guys to 2-year deals before the 2024 offseason. So the 49ers did plan to really allow some of these players to grow into their roles, and I think that with Yetur Gross-Matos, with Malik Collins, they're happy, but they're not happy with positions 5 through 8, 5 through 9 on this defensive line. And that's where you turn to the draft. I think that, you know, you look at somebody like Mason Graham out of Michigan, that's a premium defensive tackle. That's somebody who probably is going to go in the top 10. 49ers don't pick until number 11. I would not put it past them to go after somebody like Mason Graham. That might require a trade up to like number 7. That may be all the capital that the 49ers have, but I think they need an impact defensive tackle, because when you talk about this defense losing some steam since 2019. Saleh had everybody, right, in 2019 when they peaked. They had DJ Jones as like D lineman number 6 or number 7. They still had DeForest Buckner. They still had Eric Armstead. All those guys are gone now. DJ Jones, by the way, is going to be a free agent. So maybe we see a reunification there. Maybe Solomon Thomas comes back to the 49ers as a good rotational piece. He followed Saleh to New York. Same thing with Javon Kinlaw. He followed Robert Saleh to New York. So maybe the 49ers bolster defensive tackle that way, but I think that when you look at what they've lost since 2019, it's been mainly at that defensive tackle spot. Even when they had the number 1 defense in all of football, and that was with DeMeco Ryans as the defensive coordinator, they were precariously thin at defensive tackle. They only got 2 or 3 sacks all season from their defensive tackles combined in that 2022 season. So, and then the talent drain has just continued. Obviously, Eric Armstead was replaced with Malik Collins, and Collins has been that number 7 defensive tackle pass rush win rate guy. You love that, but they need more at defensive tackle. And that's why I talk about Mason Graham out of Michigan. But is it possible that they go for an edge rusher? That's, we watch KJ Wright coach Mike Green, and we see Mike Green dominate people. 17 sacks for Marshall last season, and I just, people are going to say his arms are going to be a little bit short. Obviously dominated Josh Connerly, the projected first-round draft pick out of Oregon, on the leveling play that we saw during the Senior Bowl practices. I care more about results than strict measurables, and I think that Mike Green delivered results in college. He's delivering results going up against guys who are projected to be first-round draft picks. As KJ Wright said, you can't fake your way through those 17 sacks. It would not shock me if the 49ers came out of this draft with multiple defensive linemen picked. Everybody's going to be hammering home, hey, they have to pick offensive linemen, but the 49ers are going to go with where they can spot the most value. And there is a surplus now, it seems, of defensive linemen available relative to offensive linemen available, just because of how the development of the game has gone at the lower levels. And, this started about 10 or 15 years ago. You had maybe even a little bit more than that, but you had a lot of skill position weapons at the high school level, flip to defensive line, become edge rushers to take advantage of that athleticism that they had to really constrict the pocket and win the game at ground zero, point blank, right at that defensive line. And the downstream effects of that have been this surplus in D-line talent. And if you've seen a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, who a couple years ago went to the Super Bowl, lost to the Chiefs with an older defensive line. Hassan Reddick, Javon Hargrave, the 49er, was on that defensive line. They have completely rebuilt that line, and now they're back at the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. They've drafted Jalen Carter. Nolan Smith is on that D-line. A lot of young names. Like, the average age was like almost 30 a couple years ago for the Eagles. Now the average age is closer to 25, maybe even a little bit underneath that. So the 49ers need to rebuild their D-line in the same way. Howie Roseman got it done very quickly in Philadelphia. John Lynch needs to get it done just as quickly in San Francisco. They're still going to run the wide 9. Saleh took the wide 9 with him to the Jets, and it worked there. They had top 5 defenses for that New York Jets team. They're still going to run the wide 9, but for the wide 9, you've got to have Ferraris across the front. Nick Bosa, he's a Ferrari. Maybe the 49ers can add a Mike Green. That'd be a Ferrari to add to the line. Maybe they could add a Mason Graham. Maybe they can sign a DJ Jones. Maybe they can even sign a Hassan Reddick, who's going to be a free agent. Although I think that'd be going in the wrong direction. I think they want young, durable talent with a lot of future upside. Hassan Reddick, after the holdout last year, only had 1 sack. But that is how you rebuild the defensive line if you're the 49ers. You dip into the talent pool of this draft class. It might be the most deep class of defensive tackles, and we're starting with Mason Graham on that front, that we've seen in a long time. So it wouldn't shock me if the 49ers went that direction. Wouldn't shock me if they also tried to load up on those edge rushers with Mike Green, starting with Mike Green, moving on to some other edge rushers in the NFL draft. That's what Saleh's going to need. I think that's what he's going to talk about with Chris Kraseric, and that's what San Francisco needs at the bedrock of this defense to bring this back to the glory days of 2019. It's tapered off since then, and last year was bad for the 49ers. They dropped all the way to the number 26 defense, number 29 against the run. They've had to fire 2 straight defensive coordinators.
Steve Wilkes just signed with the Jets, actually, under Aaron Glenn. Glenn, defensive-minded head coach from the Lions. So I think Wilkes is going to fit with the Jets better. He didn't fit with the 49ers. That was a performance regression. They went from number 1 to number 10 overall, from number 2 to number 26 against the run. And then this past season, the 49ers tumbled even further from number 10 to number 26 overall. Wasn't good enough. That's why Saleh's back, but that's why they have to invest in this defensive line. It has to be the engine of the team. Probably the last big video we'll do here from Paris. You can take a look at the view of the whole city from Mount Mart, right under the Sacré-Cœur Cathedral. You can see all the way back to the city.